to the Melanated Muslimah podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about lessons that I've learned from 2023 because we're starting a new year. And these are lessons that I think will make sense to new Muslims, people who experience being Muslim for a quite amount of time and probably had these same feelings when they were new to Islam. So the biggest lesson that I've got from 2023 is to remember that I am still a student when it comes to this beautiful thing called Islam. And as a new Muslim, you may feel like you need to know everything because to you, born Muslims may have more knowledge than you. To you, the people that's around you who are also reverts have more knowledge than you, and you feel like you're left out because they may say phrases that you don't understand or say an Islamic word that you have never heard of and you don't know the meaning to, so you feel a little bit of uncomfortable and so forth. What I want to say is when you hear a word or you hear something that somebody says that is not familiar to you, ask them what it means. Be like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Can you tell me what it means? Or write it down if there's a way that you know how to spell it, because sometimes the spelling of these words are very interesting when it's translated from Arabic into English. And everybody spells different words differently for interesting reasons. So write it down. Don't be scared to ask, say, hey, I don't know what that means, because no one's going to be like, oh, you don't know what that means? That's crazy. If they do, they need a hug or something. But don't let that discourage you and stuff like that. And it could be hard because as a new Muslim, there's people coming up to you and telling you or asking you questions about your religion, and you may not know the answer to some of the questions that they're asking. Never feel bad that you don't know the answer to the question. Be like, you can just be honest. Like, hey, I'm still new. This is a question I've never been asked before. This is a question that I never thought of. I don't know the answer to that, or something like that. Because there's been times where I have asked born Muslims questions about Islam and Islamic scholars questions about Islam. And they're like, you know what? I never thought of that. Oh, you know that I don't know the answer to the question. That's a good question. Let me go find out for you. And even they don't have all the answers. And never feel bad, because no one is not going to have all the answers to Islam. There's going to be scholars in the room. Think about it. There's going to be Islamic scholars, and they can all be talking, and multiple Islamic scholars may learn one thing from one person. And that one person that taught all those other people in the room something, he maybe learned something new from one of the stuff that Islamic scholar says. Because that's just how life is. No one's going to have all the answers and stuff like that. And the only person that has all the answers is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're still a student. Even Muslims who have been Muslims for many decades, they are still students to Islam because they learn something new all the time, just like us new Muslims. And keep in mind that the Sahaba was learning about Islam as they went on. Think about the Quran was revealed over a period of many years, and they didn't have a full book compiled together to read like we have now. Subhanallah. So be lucky that we have a whole book that we can go to and probably find some of the answers to our questions. Be happy that we have hadiths that we can go to figure out how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ lived and so forth. We have all that access to us. So you're still a student. Don't be sad that you're a student, because everyone who is a Muslim is still a student when it comes to Islam. So another big thing for me that I've learned is having low deen and bringing it back up. Having a good sense of faith, it going down and bringing it back up. I learned that this year. And I find beauty in that, because it shows you how much your faith is important to you. Even though your deen went down, you still found a way to go back to it. Think about that. A lot of people in life, they hit like a bump in the road, and they're just like, you know what? Boom. I no longer want this. This thing no longer serves me. Oh, the things are too hard. I can't do it. It's hard. So I'm just going to give up. A lot of people get like that. A lot of people stay like that. But when you lose your deen, I want to say lose, or when it goes really low and you get it right back up, subhanallah, that is such a beautiful thing, is because even in the low time, even though your faith was a little bit low, you remember who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Like, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the low times is such a beautiful thing, and it's something that we should all strive for, even though it could be hard for other people. It's because even when we have low times, you may feel like, oh my goodness, I'm in this time, this is the worst time of my life. And we forget how many other low times that we have in our life and how we got up from that. But this one may seem the most dramatic, the most drastic. Oh, I never experienced something like this before. And we forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved us from so many things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought us back up when we fell down and stuff like that. And I feel like once you remember that, once your deen is low and you bring it back up, you are a true person of faith, because you didn't let this one thing, even though it brought you down a bit, break you. It didn't. So this year I learned that, and I also learned that because I got back up, and because when I got back up, my deen got stronger than before, I knew that this religion was for me. Because back when I was a Christian, when I got low in faith, like I would just like, you know what, stop everything. Like, oh no, I don't want to do this. Like, you know, and then it would take me a couple of months of like just being away from it for me to go back. And then I'll hit this little point again and like just don't care. Like it was nothing was pulling me towards going back to it. So being that I experienced this with Islam, and Islam still kept calling me back to it, I knew that this religion was for me. I knew that the God that I worship now is really protecting me, really there for me, and so forth. So I learned that this year too. Another big lesson that I learned this year is to remember to slow down. Like, one thing about me is that I like to be on the go, 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 do this, do that, do this, do that. And for example, I was working 2 jobs from February to August. One was my full-time job and one was a part-time job. And through those months, I had my first Ramadan, and then I was fasting and I was going to Taraweeh. I was trying to watch Islamic lectures, trying to read the Quran, and then like a few months later was Eid al-Adha, and trying to learn about that, and then trying to learn about different Islamic stuff that I needed to learn that I wasn't like giving all my attention to, but then being so tired, then trying to do other things and trying to keep up with loved ones, trying to do this and that, and it was just so much. And my body literally told me, like, if you don't stop doing this, you are going to fall down. And I feel like when it comes to new Muslims, because I've seen other Muslims talk about this on the internet, and I've talked to other new Muslims about this, it feels like you get like mentally burned out with all the stuff, because it's not like we went to Islamic school on the weekend like some kids where they gained knowledge about Islam. It's not like we have Muslim parents to teach us stuff about Islam. Like, we literally have to be learn everything on our own, like from the ground up, with unless you have like good Muslim friends, unless you're married to a Muslim woman or man who's giving you this knowledge, who's feeding this knowledge into you. That's good. Like, I'm glad that you guys have that. But if you don't, it can feel overwhelming. It's like, I have to work my regular job. I have to figure out what I'm going to cook. And I also have to learn about Islam. And it can feel like a lot. And with that, I would say, like, don't feel like you have to rush to do everything, because rushing is not going to help everything. Take your time. There's no reason that you need to be sprinting to do all this stuff. And this is a reminder for myself as well. Like, there's a quote that's overused. It's a quote that goes, life is a marathon, not a race. Like, you're not trying to do a 100-meter run, and you're not Usain Bolt. Okay. You're what is that girl who uncle got her into a race and she was behind everybody, like slow. There was like a race from back in I forgot what country it was from, but for those who know, it's like somebody whose uncle was in politics and allowed her to like race in this competition, and she was all the way in the back. That is you, because you're trying to be running so fast like these other people, and it's not working out for you. So just remember that life is a marathon. It's not a race. Give yourself grace. Remember to take breaks, but don't be like neglecting your duty to learning about Islam, because as a new Muslim, it's your duty to learn, but don't force yourself to learn so much at once. Take your time, remembering that, the Sahaba learned stuff throughout many years and so forth. So take your time, but don't be neglectful. Another thing that became more important to me this year than in any other years is making sure that you have time for your loved ones. So even in the process of me working 2 jobs and stuff like that, I still tried my best to make time for my loved ones. And it wasn't the best. Like, I even got called out a few times that I'm not like being as present in some people's lives as they were used to, and it really like made them sad that I wasn't there. And it made me sad that they like felt sad that I wasn't there and so forth. And with that being said, those are like for your close family and friends. Like, make time for them. These are people that you love. Like, think about your top 10 close people. Do you actually make time to spend with them as you want to? Can you make more time to spend with them? Like, think about that. Now, when it comes to people who are your acquaintances, people who, are in your life that you're not very fond of, but like you have to keep crossing paths with them and stuff like that. Sometimes you may not talk to these people every day. You may not see them all the time. And you may have a thought that it's like thinks of them. Like, for me, I try every time I think of a person, I try to reach out to them. Because why am I thinking about them? Why do they come to my mind? Like, what is this? And I think about that because, like, God forbid, this person can come to your mind and you may not be close to them, or you could be close to them, whatever the circumstances are. They came to your mind, you thought about texting them, and you're like, you know what? No, I'm not going to text them, either because of how they treated you in the past, either because, because they don't reach out to you and you're the only one reaching out to them. It depends. Like, if they did something really, really bad to you, then that is what you and your therapist need to work on, and y'all need to figure out something. Like, this is for like normal stuff. So when you think of that person and you don't reach out to them, and God forbid they pass away, like, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I thought about this person and I didn't reach out to them and stuff like that. And also, like, you don't want to be a person that gives the person that you had an opportunity to involve in your life more their flowers after they die. Like, when they were here, you didn't even tell them all these things that you loved about them. You didn't check up on them. But now you're at your funeral saying, oh, I love this and this and this about them. They're not here to hear all those things. You know what I mean? And also, when you think about someone, you never know if it's because you're going to pass away. And I know this may sound like very like morbid or stuff like that, but this could be your last interaction with them before you pass away, because we never know. So the lesson that I learned was to reach out to people, because you never know. And it's also from experience that I have had. So reach out to people when you think of them. Make time for your loved ones. We're all busy, but you can make time out for your loved ones, because we don't possess people. We're here to experience people. People are on loan to us. We can't put a person in our pocket and pretend that they're like this object that's not going to break, because even objects break. Like, we only have certain time that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows with a person. So make sure that you're reaching out and speaking to them and telling them that you love them and so forth. Another lesson that I learned this year is realizing the type of Muslim I want to be. And I'm still on that journey, I guess you can say. And it's been such a weird process, because when you're growing as a person and when you're growing in your faith and you're trying to figure out what type of Muslim you want to be, you're in this kind of weird stage. And I call this stage the stage that you are in between, like, almost like the weird looking chicken. Like, when there's a chicken and they could either be a chick, the weird looking chicken, or a chicken. You are in that weird looking chicken phase. Okay. That is what I am in. And in that process, and like of me trying to figure out what type of Muslim woman I want to be, or Muslim that I want to be, I realized that there's certain Islamic scholars that I like more than others. There's certain Islamic thoughts that I like more than others. There's certain ways that I view Islam that may be more religious than others, or less religious than others. The Islamic content that I watched before I became a Muslim is different than now. The Islamic content that I watch as soon as I became Muslim is different than now. And the ones that I like now, it completely shows the type of like Islamic messaging I want to have in front of me, then like figuring out what Islamic pages I want to follow on Instagram versus the other ones I don't, based on the content that they have and so forth. So this year I got to really figure that out, and it's been like kind of uncomfortable, but no one ever said that growth was comfortable. Like, growing does not equal comfortability. And I had to remind myself that, and I had to remind myself that, I am a new Muslim. I am coming into this religion brand new. I'm learning what I like and what I don't like. And also, when you're starting to learn what you like and how you view Islam, you're going to start to know what type of Muslim people in your mosque you want to be around. And it may be completely different than when you just started, because I realized there's certain people who I knew when I just started that I'm not like. I realized that I don't like their views or so forth on Islam, and that's completely okay compared to like the people that I talk to now and like the way that they view Islam. Hopefully that made sense, because it made sense in my head. But that's basically what I learned, is that like you're tailoring, knowing what type of Muslim I want to be, and starting to realize what type of Islamic content I want, what type of Muslim I want to be, how I want to incorporate things into my life, and so forth. And lastly, the biggest lesson that I've learned this year is how happy I am to know who Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is. There's so many people who don't. There's so many people who are reverts that don't really know who Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is. There's so many Muslims, born Muslims, who don't know who Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is. And I am lucky to know him, even though I may only know like 3% of him, because I'm still on my Islamic journey. And with that being said, because I know him and because I have such strong faith in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, there are things that were hard, things that made me happy. And the first thing that I wanted to do was to run to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And based on my past experience with my previous religion, that was never me. And being that happened to me this year many times, where I just wanted to run to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for thankfulness, or just wanted to run to him because I just wanted to speak to him about something, I know that how lucky I was, and it was a lesson for me to know that you're lucky to have this, because some people don't, and it's something that you shouldn't take for granted. I don't know why my voice is this low now. I don't know what happened, but we're just going to roll with it, because that's what my voice decided to do. So these are just some of the lessons that I've learned in 2023. There's so much more, but those are personal to me, and maybe one day, inshallah, I will share them. So I hope my lessons from 2023 inspired you, made you think about ways that you can improve, or you may have felt this way before, and all that jazz. So thank you for listening. Assalamualaikum, Warahmatullahi, Wabarakatuh.